Plaskett. Good morning, it's Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, and we are in another episode of Coffee with Stacey. I have my coffee this morning, and I actually have with me as well some Johnny cake this morning. I'm being bad. I have a little saltfish over there, some smoked herring mix. So you guys are gonna have to suffer through as I eat that. I have some really great guests. It's that time of the year again when we begin to prepare ourselves for hurricane season. Many of us don't like to think about it, but I think it's important that we do whatever's necessary to prepare for hurricane season. This is also, I just have to give a personal shout out right now. Today is my mother's birthday. My mother's birthday. This is a big thing. The woman who gave birth to me, today is her birthday. My mother she says she's 48, but you should reverse those numbers and you will get her true age. Magdalene Agatha Hendricks Plaskett, happy birthday to you. Born today, July 18th, 1936 on Hill Street in Christiansted, St. Croix. Thank you for all the things that you've done, sacrifices you've made, the amazing life that you have led. So I have some amazing women coming on the show. I thought about it like a couple of weeks ago. We had all men when we were talking about, this was during Black Lives Matter, talking about being Black in America, had a professor and some young Black men. I thought that was a really dynamic conversation. We have some dynamic go-getter crisis management women who are going to be discussing hurricane preparedness. So immediately to my guests, Japira, should I bring the guests on now? We have Christina Thomas, who is with the American Red Cross. Christina, I've known Christina from another life when she worked on the Hill. She is now with the Red Cross, and she'll tell you a little bit about herself. And then Imani Daniel, who's with St. Thomas Recovery Team. They were created in the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and have been doing some dynamic work in the Virgin Islands. And of course, the incomparable Barbara Peterson, who is with the Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency and is responsible for all things disaster, coordinating our response and our preparedness, right? So thank you all for being on the show. I think this is going to be a great discussion. So to kick it off, let me start with Barbara. Barbara, we ready?
Yeah, I guess I am. You woke me up on a Saturday morning, and you know I don't do Saturdays, and I'm here with my coffee. So thank you for having me. Hi, ladies. How are you? How's everybody? Imani. I'm sorry.
I was asking Imani, do you have coffee or tea?
I do have coffee. Usually it's bush tea, but it's coffee with Stacey this morning. So.
And Christine, you're a coffee person, Christina? Oh, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon. So
I
like to balance it.
Barbara and I are coffee all day long.
All day long.
Have to be.
Go through another kind of liquid. So Barbara, can you tell us what is the Virgin Islands done to be ready for hurricane season, and are we ready?
Well, I want to start talking about are we ready? We're always in ready mode. We are doing a lot of tabletop exercises with our hurricane planning and preparedness team led by Denise Lewis, who's our deputy director of planning and preparedness here at Vitima. We have a strong team of people. I'm excited about the people we have on board. But hurricane preparedness starts with you as the person who should be preparing.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I want to emphasize more than anything today, because no matter what the government does, the individual and the families and the people in the community must do their part as well. You know, being in a territory, being on an island, help will come, whether it's from VITEMA, from the National Guard, from the fire service, from VIPD. But we must take care of ourselves before everybody comes knocking on the door. And that's why I want to emphasize more than anything today, what we're going to talk about is making sure that you create your own internal plan, and when you think you have a plan A, come up with a plan B and C and a possible D if necessary, because things will go wrong in emergency management. As much as we plan, as much as we train, as much as we prepare, something always goes out of whack. And that's why we use what we learn after to prepare again for other scenarios for the future. So we can talk about what I think you should have in your kit. We call it build your own kit. You want to spend some time on that, Congresswoman?
Sure. I have a hurricane preparedness list.
There you go.
Our office does. And we'll be sending it out the first week of August. It'll be in everyone's mailbox. But why don't you go through the list so I can see if we have the right stuff on here.
Well, the first thing is nationally, they always say prepare for 3 days, because we're in the Virgin Islands, I'm asking you to prepare for at least a week. So you have to multiply what you need in terms of food and water for that amount of time. So we anticipate that you should have a gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. That's what the national directions is, but I'm saying a week. Okay, so and that's for drinking and for sanitation.
Okay.
We all know about food and canned food in the Virgin Islands. Start stocking up from now. Please don't wait till you hear about a storm leaving off the coast of Africa and everybody's in panic mode. Every time you go to the grocery store, pick up another can of soup, another can of tuna, whatever it is that you like. If you don't like
sardines, that's my thing.
I like sardines too, but not the one in mustard. Not the one in mustard. I like the one in the oil thing.
I like the oil.
But we digress. Crackers, yeah. Gotta have it.
As a digression, hey, I just want to say good morning, Renee Peterson, our Barbara, your buddy Martin Walter Dukes. Good morning.
Hey Martin, how are you? That's my guy. Yeah, I love Martin.
To all the good people that are listening, John Mason, Amy, good to see you. Carol Burke. Timothy Allen Hart, good morning. Beverly Nicholson Doty. Woo.
Oh, wow. Commissioner. Oh, that's awesome.
Good morning. Okay, please go on.
Okay, so in the food category, like I said, start stocking up early. Do it now. As much space as you have, be prepared. Most of these things are shelf ready for a long time, so they're not going to be going anywhere. And then check your pantry for the things that you had there last year and make sure they haven't expired. We don't want you eating expired food. I'm going to veer off a little bit about the list. Everybody knows about flashlights and first aid kits and that kind of thing. We need to make sure we have a working radio. But a big deal for me is you just talked about your mother's birthday and you shared with me her age. We have an aging community in the Virgin Islands, and I'm asking everyone to reach out to someone that lives alone, that needs support. Get that aunt or uncle or grandfather or somebody that people haven't been checking on, make sure they're okay now. Another thought is that many of them don't like to leave their homes. Start bringing them over now for like Sunday dinner or taking them out and making them comfortable in your home. And if a storm is pending, they may be open to coming to you and staying with you. So they won't be alone. We don't want them by themselves.
So it's not a sudden thing for them.
Right. Yeah. Let them get acclimated to your surroundings. Some people are just, creatures of comfort. They like being where they are, and they're not gonna, if you go to them during a storm, they're like, I'm fine, I'll be fine, but they won't. So, try to get them out so they're in a safe environment. Again, flashlights, first aid kits, extra batteries, all those things should be, you should have. But another thing that you should have is a whistle. Everybody should buy a whistle, and in a pending storm, put it around your neck. If you're separated, God forbid, you are separated, you can blow that whistle and find each other until help comes over. You can find each other, and then help can find you as well. Now, we are living in a COVID-19 pandemic, and we anticipate we're actually going into hurricane season with that. So what hurricane preparedness would look like has escalated to providing PPEs, making sure you have masks and gloves and all these things. So if you have to go into a shelter, you know, you have the necessary gear for that. You know, wrenches, pliers, can openers, all the things that we take for granted that we think we'll find when it gets chaotic, but we won't. Just making sure you have that kit in place. I always suggest buying some of those plastic bins. They don't allow for water to get in, and you can put all that stuff in there. And make sure your batteries on your cell phones and stuff are charged. Make sure you have a map. Speaking about maps, evacuation plans. If you have to leave your home, how often can someone describe how to get to your home in the Virgin Islands? We always know how we drive there, but we always, if you had to say to somebody, come to my house, it takes you a half an hour to describe it, because unfortunately we haven't gotten to the point. We're getting there, but we haven't gotten to the point where we have everything mapped out. And if MapQuest or the GPS system goes down as well, that can be complicated. So do a sit rep, do a actual road map of how to get to your home. Make sure the people that you work with know how to get to your home. And have a buddy system internally so that people could understand how to get to your home. And we drive home the same way every day in the Virgin Islands. Figure out a different way to get home. Make sure you have other routes to get to your home in and out of the territory. So I'll stop there for a second. I'm sure you want to talk to the other.
Sure.
Yes.
I know some of the other things that, you know, we have to remember, of course, is, you know, keeping your medication in that same place, making sure it's ready. If you're able to get more than 1 month, you know, sometimes they let you do 3 months of medication to make sure that you have that. Even emergency cash.
Yeah, you have to have cash. Cash is king. After the last storms, I can tell you that I was very lucky that I was able to get things faster because I had cash. I noticed people coming up trying to use credit cards, and the concept that phone lines were down and you couldn't swipe those cards. So I know everybody's budget is different. Stock away $5, $10, whatever it is that you can afford every time you have you can do that. It makes a difference, so that you can buy fuel if you have to. And that's something you should have stocked up for your hurricane plan in your toolkit. Have a gallon of, if you have a generator, if it's diesel or gasoline or whatever, have fuel on hand so that you are covered. But that will eventually run out if recovery takes longer. So always have some money and ice, or you might need something, whatever that may be, you will need cash. Your documents, Congresswoman, I'm encouraging everyone to take a screenshot of your documents and save them in the cloud, email them to yourself. Of course, keep them in plastic so that they are not damaged. However, if they are, and it happens all the time, email a copy of your passport, your deeds, your bank statements, anything, everything, your IDs, everything. Copy them and email them to yourself so you can go back in the cloud and recover them.
Yeah, I know. Even I always have. We have a go bag in the house that includes, you know, a change of clothes, layers, all of the, you know, birth certificates, all of those documents, and an extra credit card that doesn't have anything on it in a
Right.
go bag, just in case,
Always have a go bag, and you should have a go bag in your car as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Along
Okay.
with my towel and a extra bathing suit, because you never know. You never know.
Wrong topic.
And my, to-go cup.
And then the last part I'm not going with the to-go cup thing. I have coffee. Hint, hint. But the biggest part is staying informed. Okay. Vitima does a really good job of informing people in the community. We have VI alerts that we send out. We encourage you to go online and download our app called Everbridge. It doesn't take any minutes off of your phone or anything like that, and the service is great. So any kind of emergency, and we are talking about hurricane preparedness, but any event, and people think that all Vitima does is hurricanes, but we don't. We do everything. Emergencies are anything from an active shooter to a pandemic to a hurricane to a tsunami. Everything is included. So anything that will come up in the Virgin Islands, we can alert you on what's going on. So please stay informed. All right?
Yep. Thank you. I see Megan Enright is on here. Good morning, Megan. Thanks for all the work that you're doing on St. John. And, we're talking about hurricane preparedness, but Imani, I know that you have some lessons learned because you guys are involved in the recovery and the aftermath. One of the things that we have on our checklist is taking a picture of your home so that you know what it looks like before, and you have evidence of what it looked like before, and check your home insurance policy. What are some of the things, lessons? Tell us about your group and tell us some of the things that you guys have learned since the hurricanes.
Definitely. So good morning. I'm so happy to be here with this dynamic group of women. So the St. Thomas Recovery Team is the long-term recovery group on St. Thomas. There's one on each of the three big islands. And, what we did originally was try to just coordinate the private sector nonprofit response, which often can respond quicker and more nimble than government. And so, we can be in there ground zero even before the event, really doing some of that last mile preparedness, and then just jump in immediately, start providing services for people. So that looks like management, really assessing what the unmet need and how much damage individuals have seen, and then come up with ways through donations or feeding plans or leveraging volunteers to help fill that unmet need. And that's something that we're still working on almost 3 years after Hurricanes Irma and Maria. Something we also have the privilege of doing is a lot of community engagement and community planning. And so that manifests itself in things like the Community Recovery Plan, where we decided or came up with 23 different projects revolving around alternative energy and senior engagement, volunteer management, food security. And so really anything that the people of St. Thomas decided was a priority back in 2018, we're still working on to become a reality. We learned so much from the storms. I like to say that everybody kind of has an honorary PhD in emergency management now just from existing here. And it's important to remember that not only are we recovering from the 2017 hurricane years or hurricane season, but we're also currently in another disaster with this pandemic and preparing for this year's hurricane season. And so there's a lot of different layers. And I think it's important to, and kind of keeps us sane, especially the ones who work in this system, to remember that preparedness is about, it's a culture, it's a way of life. It's not, like Barbara Peterson was saying, it's not in May going to buy a couple canned food and some water. It's how do we, on the individual household level, on the neighborhood level, on the community organization level, on the local government level, and on the federal government level, how do each of those levels take responsibility for the role that they play in preparedness and immediate response? And then how do we all communicate, collaborate, and work together to make sure that we're not doing double work or there's no gaps and we're not missing anyone? And so to your point about how to really engage with your insurance company, that is a hard lesson that a lot of learns.
Wow.
And yeah, so taking photos and videos and emailing to them to yourself or to a trusted loved one in the States, Really going over your insurance policy to make sure that wind and flooding and all of the different things that could go wrong are covered, and know what kind of documentation you're going to need beforehand, and just really understanding the vulnerabilities of your home. I know a lot of people are still rebuilding, and so they may have felt comfortable riding out the 2017 storms in their home, but because they haven't gotten to their roof, they haven't gotten to the windows, they haven't put the shutters back on, it might not be a safe place to ride it out. And so taking this time, now that we're all kind of stuck in our home, I WD-40'd my shutters and make sure to cut trees back, using this time at home wisely, but really assess your vulnerabilities and make the decision. It can be very life and death. And so come up with that plan, the plan A through Z, because honestly, the same friend or family member that you thought you were going to stay with, something might happen there and you might have to have something else lined up. And something else we learned that worked really well is trust and use the diaspora. My friend group informally organized, finding each other through our friends in the diaspora. And sometimes it's easier to get that phone call out to somebody in New York or Atlanta who can then, say, okay, Imani and her family are safe, and communicate that back out when they talk to people on the ground, because we know communications are going to go down. So just really being creative, looking at what your limitations and your vulnerabilities are, and taking the time now to come up with a plan to overcome them.
That's so great. We have some good people here coming that are watching right now. I just want to give a shout out to Abel. Good to see you, Abel. Rob Kunkel, Yvette Delabank. Wow, we've got some wonderful people. Good morning to you guys. Megan is agreeing with you, Imani. Preparedness is a culture. Yes. Gigi Gugo, again, condolences to you and the family. Gigi says many insurance companies now allow you to add someone to access your policy online. You can add people to that, to be that, as you say, that other diaspora help. I remember after the storms in our office, we got calls from the VI Association of DC, the DMV area, the New York Freshwater Association, Houston, Virgin Islands Association, Atlanta Association. So all of them, would be on conference calls to make sure, remember that, Barbara, coordinating with them to say, okay, you guys are getting, so let's not all get the same things, and let's not all send it to the same place. How do we disperse the goods and services to one another? But you talked about riding out the storm and assessing what you should or should not, is your home available or not? One of the greatest resources we have here in the Virgin Islands is the American Red Cross. And Christina Thomas is with us, representing the American Red Cross. Christina, you want to share about some of the work that you all are doing? First, I understand that you were in the Bahamas for quite a period of time.
I was. Good morning.
Good morning.
I apologize. I'm learning to work the camera. I have no social media because, as many of your staff learn on the Hill, that everything you do gets attributed to your boss. So I never had any. So I'm learning to work the camera system and the mics, and my new 18-year-old is assisting. So forgive me if there's something wacky. Put it in the chat. I promise to change it. No, I appreciate you having me on. As I said, I've been with the Red Cross for a while. When I came on board about 2 years ago, we were dealing with all the relief efforts and the response and recovery from Hurricanes Irma and Maria. And my husband, who had retired from the Marine Corps, had started with the Red Cross and represented the Florida region literally 2 days before all 2017, September 2017. So he came into that and started that work. And I thought, I'm throwing you a big birthday party. What do you mean you can't come? And he's like, I think it's going to get a little worse. And it did. And that's how I really learned kind of that rhythm that the Red Cross brings. We do have offices in St. Thomas and St. Croix, as you know, chapter offices led by our regional executive, John Duck, who I think Ms. Peterson has worked with in the past. And he's been around a long time. He knows what he's doing. As the director of government relations, I don't work hurricane specifically, but what happened was my father's family, my family is from Eleuthera, Bahamas. And so when Hurricane Dorian hit, they looked around and they said, "Hey, don't you know some people down there?" And I said, "I'm looking for some people down there." I was looking actually still, to Amani's point, on WhatsApp, trying to find family, and people are posting. And I had been saying, get out. Where's your plan? Have you talked to people? Have you got with the society? Did you download the apps? Did you make the checklist? Did you have the go bag? And unfortunately, and I think, the Bahamas has been blessed. It's kind of, bypassed them several times, but being in the Caribbean, you still have to, be mindful of the fact that you are surrounded by water, and and help does not come quickly. So I did deploy to Hurricane Dorian. I spent actually about 4.5 weeks there, and traveled throughout. I went to Abaco, which was,
that was the epicenter.
It was just devastating. I mean, I had never seen such disasters, and then I took pictures and shared them back. My husband, who's a retired Marine, he said, that looks like a war zone. It literally looked that bad. And so I know for the folks who've been dealing with disasters and seeing what's happening, that's what people are facing. They come out and it looks like a war zone. And so sadly, you have to prepare, like it's a war zone. So I'm blessed to have parents who are retired Navy doctors. That's how they became citizens. So that paranoia lived long of having your prescriptions, and did you have your food, did you have your water, and did you have your cans, and all of that. And that's what you need. So to that point, we make sure that we have a Red Cross app, emergency app, that can also go with Everbridge, which is a good kind of rhythm of how you can do long-term before strategies, short-term before strategies. Let's say you're being alerted and you have like kind of a 12-hour window, what to do during the hurricane, how you can start to prepare yourself, and some efforts on recovery. The Red Cross is lucky to have been in USVI for a while and in Puerto Rico, and actually spent a lot of time with our neighbor National Society in the Bahamas. So we have a good feel for how to get in and out of areas because we already have pre-positioned materials there. For the Red Cross, that's one of the fantastic things we do. We are very data driven. So we have a system called RC View, which is help supported by Walmart, Coca-Cola, Delta, some of our big major partners that have funded that, which allows us to see satellite imagery in connection with NOAA and NWS of where disasters are, how we can move materials immediately when things are starting to come down. We're able to see that virtually. And so we have an entire disaster team that works round the clock. There are literally calls every day at the Red Cross. I'm on the Monday through Friday crew that does the 9 a.m. stand up every single day with every single segment of our disaster team. And the beauty of that is they're always checking in. Where are the supplies? Where's the medicine? Have you reached out to elected officials such as yourself, local officials? How are we working with the emergency management team? Do they need extra help? Is this a function they can do? As you know, we don't typically shelter in USVI. Happy to help if needed. But during COVID, what we've done is what we call non-congregate shelter. So we have placed people in hotels. So if you've seen some of the unfortunate flooding that's happened in Mississippi, some of the things that are happening in Florida, or even some of the wildfires that are happening in California, what you're seeing is us position people with our relationships already with current lodgings. What we're finding, and I'm sure this is an issue in USVI, is there's limited lodging when you have these issues.
Right.
Things are already taken up. And so what you're having to do is you're having to force yourself to do congregate sheltering. And I think this is where the relationships that are built over time, and to each of the ladies' points, you have to build these relationships early. You have to know where you can go early. You have to know where there's always flooding on this one street, in this one avenue, on this one road. So that's not going to be the route. What's your secondary route? What's your extra plan? I can tell you, even related to COVID, in terms of disaster, just here, we spend half the year in Florida and half the year here in the DC area, which is where I am now. And right before COVID, was announced the proclamations by the president, I got a call from our disaster team lead, and he said, go get 2 weeks worth of everything. And if you can go get 4, get it. And I thought, this guy, hyperbolic, came from FEMA, then was at NOAA, Brad Kaiserman, who many of you worked with. And I thought, Brad, come on, buddy. I mean, is it? I mean, this is going to be a couple weeks. Kids getting the sniffles. Like, these people need to buck up. My mother came in a boat from Cuba, so she's always like, those are first world disasters. You don't have real so I said, all right, fine. I already keep, because like I said, I have that family. So I already had about a week or 2 of items here, but I went ahead and I went to the commissary and picked up all these extra things. And I was one of the people that picked up about 6 packs of toilet paper. For those of you that saw the toilet paper panic, it was real in the States. So I was blessed to have that. And when people got sick, and I was able to check on neighbors and literally dole out some toilet paper, canned goods, can openers, battery operated flashlights. I have 4 Red Cross backpacks that I keep here that are emergency kits. And so those things are so important because there will be some people who are not prepared. So how can you not just assist yourself? But I think this goes back to kind of, how you help your neighbor. And so for the Red Cross, that's what we're about, the relationships, how we help our neighbors. We are 19,600 strong in employees, but we are 320,000 strong in volunteers. And that's who does the bulk of our work. So that's
Christina, the volunteers here in the Virgin Islands are amazing. And I count among those my own Laverne Joseph,
yes,
in our office here. Every year during hurricane season, Laverne is like, I'll see you guys. I have my assignment, going to the Red Cross, to the shelters. I wanted to ask Christina or Barbara, what will be the difference then in terms of sheltering and how we, if there is, God forbid, a storm in the midst of a COVID pandemic? Have you all thought about that?
Yeah, we have thought about it, and I want to acknowledge Kaiser Callwood too, who works with the Red Cross too, yes. Congresswoman.
Oh, that's
Let's not forget him.
Listen,
You'll never be able to come to work again if you don't remember that.
Listen, Kaiser is everything, all places.
Everywhere.
That's what we need to do. As my husband will say, he haunted, because he is involved in everything, right?
Yeah.
So we from Upstreet, Board of Education, UVI. WTJI.
We could be here till Tuesday talking about Kaiser and what he's into.
Yeah. But yes, he does a tremendous job with the Red Cross.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were asking about what hurricane preparedness and COVID-19, and I kind of alluded to that previously, but Christina said it really well. We do a tremendous amount of meetings all day long. We are meeting with our teams. Red Cross, John Duck, like you said, we do hurricane preparedness trainings on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have standing meetings every day that Kaiser's involved with your office at 11 o'clock, at 4 o'clock. What do we have? What we don't have? Where are we going to put people if we have a storm? Human Services, which is the ESF that covers sheltering, works with Red Cross to make sure that we do that. And that we have sufficient shelters. However, you're right. COVID-19 will change the entire dynamics of how we are going to shelter people. The areas that the distance, how many we can have in a particular square footage, congregate, non-congregate sheltering. We're looking more at congregate sheltering because if we have to shelter families, we're looking at hotels. But as mentioned before, how many hotels do we have? How many rooms do we have? So it is huge, and we are working through it, and we're going to get it done. But yeah, it's a major issue. We have identified shelters on all 3 islands, St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John, and And we hope that we will be able to be prepared as much as we can. I'll end with that.
Let me give a couple more shout outs. Hadia Charles, thank you for watching. Hadia, we have not been able to have our drink. I know you moved over to St. Croix and I said we were gonna hang out, but with COVID, man, it's cramping the social life there. Mr. Delmida, thank you for being on here. Amaziah, Patricia Swan, just know that you are in my mind and so many people's mind as you and your mother, you're dealing with your mother and her illness. So know that we are sending positive thoughts out to you and of course all of your children as well. Hey Kat, it's good to see you. I was looking, Kat, I know that you've closed Unamore, but I need a menu. I have a menu from Bacchus. I need an actual menu from Unamore with you and Frank's signatures on it. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you very much. Kima Loving, good to see you. And Jason Budson, who is also one of those ultimate volunteers. Wherever he's needed, he's quietly there.
That's true.
And does the work. So thank you as well. And my Aunt Eleanor is watching. Aunt Eleanor, good to see you. That's my mother's youngest sister. Aunt Eleanor, don't forget today is mommy's birthday. Aunt Eleanor, I'm having some Johnny cake, but I have not had your arroz con pollo in a long time. And I'm just gonna put that out there. Just putting it out there.
You don't have any shame whatsoever.
Yeah, no. You have a closed mouth, don't get fed. Amani, do you have anything you want to add about what's happened, what we've been talking about?
Yeah, definitely. So in this kind of theme of building a culture of preparedness, we try to look at it through, three specific lenses or initiatives. And so the first is community engagement. And so I think the other two ladies have talked about how important it is to check in with your neighborhood and your close network and just see what people need and try to anticipate that beforehand. Also, big picture, thinking about what the microeconomics in the Virgin Islands looks like, because resilience is very expensive. And when you look at disasters, poor and Black and brown people are always disproportionately affected. And, after the disaster, there's this theory called the theory of conservation of resources, but pretty much it posits that if you have enough resources to withstand the event, you're going to make money and make resources off of this event. If you don't, you're going to lose money and lose resources off of this event. And so focusing on the most vulnerable people in our community from the beginning, and whether that's people with access and functional needs or very young children or the elderly, all of those people need to be at the core of our preparedness and planning, because if we can make sure they're whole, the rest of us can then focus on rebuilding and cutting our way out and things like that. And then lastly is connecting to resources. And so working with your office and as well as like National VOAD and National Red Cross and working through VITEMA and their FEMA connections, establishing very early on who the key players and who the resources are is really how we make this happen. Because even last time there was a lot of supplies and support coming in, but it wasn't as coordinated as it could have been. So we got, donations of generators, but no gas cans and no extension cords, right? And so having these kinds of conversations beforehand really can save us a lot of stress later. And so I just want Virgin Islands people to remember that climate change is real. We're going to be having these conversations more frequently going on. My generation is looking big picture. How do we halt climate change as opposed to how do we respond to it, right? Because that's the big picture. And so just thinking about, what are your passions? What are your strengths? Emergency management is a very interdisciplinary industry. Every skill set can be used here. And so I think if we think creatively about, visioning for the Virgin Islands, maybe 10, 15 years, what are some resiliency measures and sustainability measures that we really want to impart now so that life can be easier when we have to respond to these inevitable disasters? And another thing is, if you prepare for the stressor of the disaster instead of the specific disaster, you are a lot better off. And so I'll give an example. The stressor of most disasters is the economic downturn. If you can, and of course, this is a very privileged way of looking at disaster management because money is hard to come by these days. But if you can save 3 months of spending expenses, You are then protected from a pandemic where the economy shuts down, from a hurricane where the economy shuts down, from getting personally ill where the economy shuts down. And so if you focus on the stressor instead of the disaster itself, you can really find out that it's easy to actually become a lot of different things that you might not have previously thought of. And it also gives people ownership and like small wins, because honestly, the burnout is real. And so if you can do something like save 3 months of expenses as opposed to completely solarize your home, it will keep you motivated to keep on this culture of preparedness and resiliency.
One of the viewers has a question about cell service, right? So cell service is really important for emergency communications, but many businesses and residents in the Virgin Islands don't get a cell phone signal. This means that when landlines go down, there's no emergency phone service for vast areas of our islands. How do we change that? That's a great question. I'm not really sure how we change that. It's interesting what services become, we don't have a cell signal, but we have internet, right? And so people were giving messages and such through social media, through those platforms using internet, rather than making calls on cell phone. Christina, you have a thought?
Yeah, I just would also say that this is where, and I know Ms. Pearson, I think you brought it up earlier about battery operated radios. I know radios is kind of an old timey thing, and for the young people,
Not down here.
Not down here.
People
It's
are
a
like,
real life here.
I'm looking at Imani. No, the batteries, as well as having a battery operated radio, a battery operated alarm for some of us, and the flashlights, and checking those regularly, because you will be able to turn to emergency communications, and those will come up. Now, these will not get you to your friends necessarily, or get you to look at Facebook right away, but it will be able to give you emergency information about where to go. And if you've already worked that plan of where the local shelters are going to be, what the alternative shelters are going to be. I do want to highlight that I believe during Irma, for example, we had to adjust sheltering, because when we went to go meet you guys at sheltering, it already had to be moved because there was already too much materials and disaster functions there to say, okay, well, we need to put people to higher ground, or we need to move people to the side. So even during a disaster people have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And so we also are having to make movements as we go, and understand that, what can we get to the next level. So I would highly recommend, battery operated radios, making sure you know what channels to access and how to get to local emergency management, the emergency lines, the public health lines, by TEMA, all these sections, and I already kind of have that A, B, C places of where you're going to go. Right. If you have that, then you can, you should be able to do that. And that was a big issue, I will say, in the Bahamas, is that, we love a WhatsApp. And,
so do we.
And that was like done. I mean, some people could get it, and so you're like, your cousin's cousin told you to, go get on, take my picture. But you could get it. But the shelter organizations they're having radios, they're having extra supports, and it shouldn't be down long during those periods. I know we had a great partner in like AT&T and Verizon and some of these other organizations, and they are participating in that. And if you are able to do that, I think that's a huge help.
Well, the thing is, Christina, the towers are going to go down. That's just a foregone conclusion. If there's a storm in the categories that we had before, our service is going to go down. So you're right on target. Through the FEMA and the VITEMA, we do have redundancy with the radio, through IPAWS, which is a service which broadcasts emergency through radios. So radios are not old-timeish in the Virgin Islands. It is absolutely not necessary. And then we have handheld radios that we're ramping up also.
Oh, good.
So every one of our emergency managers, commissioners, police, everybody will have access to that, so that the community will stay informed. But it goes back to making sure prior to a storm that everybody's plugged in on, like you said, where do you get this information? So it's not a running around trying to figure it out. There's a designated radio station that all the messages will come through. It's built like a bunker. If that goes down, we have another plan on top of that. So there's a ton of redundancy to make sure that when cell goes down, we have radio. If radio goes down, we have smoke signals if we have to. You know, we're gonna do whatever we can to get the message.
We got runners.
Yes.
I don't want to forget the power. Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, Amani, what were you going to say?
I don't want to negate the power of small businesses and the nonprofit sector. You know, I remember Surge
Absolutely.
Broadband right after the storm setting up their own little generators to make sure Wi-Fi was accessible in certain places.
Right.
And those like low Band-Aid fixes can really be useful while the bigger systems start to come online. And then also, you know, I wasn't alive in the 80s, but I heard that we just reverted back to the 70s and 80s. I was leaving Post-it notes on people's doors like, hey, I was there, I can meet you tomorrow. You know, it really was. There was so much reverting back to like almost our cultural roots and how we were cooking on coal pots and grilling outside and how we were coming together as a community. And so I really think that like talking to the elders and like, what did you guys do before technology took over the world? There's some really like common sense ways of organizing that we, at least my generation, has come accustomed to just not really perpetuating.
Right.
So I know that, you know, some of the issues that, you know, we talk about food insecurity, that's really important to me. I sit on the agriculture committee. Nutrition is really important. I know Vitima, Red Cross, St. Thomas Recovery, you all do a really good job of assessing needs of individuals, what's needed during immediately after a storm to make sure that people have nutritious meals, particularly our elders, our young. We know that in the Virgin Islands, 40% of the children in the Virgin Islands live in poverty. So ensuring that those children continue to have meals, I know is something that all of your organizations are very engaged in. So I also wanted to shout out Lisa Callwood James. Hey, beautiful lady, thank you for watching. L.A. Williams, you are fantastic. Chris Finch is watching as well. Former Director of Human Services. He's a fantastic Virgin Islander. And Lily Alvarez, someone who we didn't mention, who I know was integral, who, as you talked about, you know, businesses just picking up the pieces, was Sarah Ridgway on St. Croix.
Yeah.
Did a tremendous amount of work. First supporting St. Thomas and St. John after Irma, and then organizing when you talked about generators and, okay, you got a generator, but do you have an extension cord? Do you have the converter? All those things. Those are things that, you know, just on the fly and just out of a needs assessment, she and her organization and the other nonprofits that are here that really stepped into place, Community Foundation, St. Croix Foundation, St. John Foundation, really did tremendous work. So we're going to wrap up, and I have questions that I usually ask all of my guests. I get into your business. Oh, what is it, Christina, before I get into your business?
I just wanted to not leave the scary information to the end. So I did want to highlight that in the Atlantic, they're expecting the above normal season.
Yes.
13 to 19 named storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, 3 to 6 major hurricanes. And so just get prepared.
Yeah.
Let's get prepared.
Yep. Do it now while you
Do it now.
Do it now while it's beautiful.
Christina, since you spoke first, I usually ask, what book or movies have you been watching lately? And which ones would you like to share with us that we should watch, or which one should we avoid?
Well, I watch more news than I should. So the biggest thing I've been watching right now is the Discovery Channel, because I need some calm in my life, except I recently watched the one on climate changes in Africa, and it did not make me feel better, but it did make me feel motivated. As I said, it's getting harder, it's getting worse. I was like, I went from, you know, the news to this. So if you can find the gentler parts of Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, Bronx Zoo, I highly recommend it. Those are some great ones. The Red Cross, our Office of General Counsel's team, which is where also the government relations team is housed, actually just started a book club.
Okay.
And so I did make tons of recommendations, but one of my favorite ones now that I'm personally reading is Latinx, and it's just kind of on that transition. My mother's from Cuba, so saying Latinx to her was like, I don't even know what new words you're trying to make up in Spanish, but because X doesn't even make that sound in Spanish, but it has helped me kind of learn a little bit more because it focuses on Puerto Rico and how people see themselves as either black or white based on the culture of the island and how it came to be. So personally, I love it. I highly recommend it.
Barbara, with your cute, I love your braces. I just think they're so cute. That's so hot.
At my age, right?
Women have braces on. I think I'm going to get some just for the look of it.
Oh, Lord. Here we go. I have to deal with this all the time.
I run off in tangents in my head all the time. But Barbara, what have you been watching? Because I know back in the day you were a huge movie person. You were always.
I still am. I'm the woman that goes to the movie theater on a Saturday or Sunday and like do 3 movies back to back. I actually buy the tickets in advance, time them. Okay, that's 2 hours. Move to the next one. Move to the next one. Got my popcorn. Yeah, I just love it to go to the theater. So with the pandemic, I'm actually going through withdrawals right now. But what I'm obsessed with right now, one, I'm so appreciative, Congresswoman, of acknowledging women in emergency management because this is a man's job. That's what they thought. And so we're not taking over. However, we do bring an element to this work that people don't acknowledge. We see the infinite details like remembering the cord, because the guy always forgets the extra cord or the extra batteries. They bring the triple A batteries when it's supposed to be a C, because we deal with that at home with the husbands and the boyfriends anyway, right? So we bring that. We look at the infinite, the little details. But what I'm obsessed with more than anything, I heard about Imani Daniel, and I'm so thoroughly impressed with her. And what I wanted to talk about coming on here was my exit plan. That's actually what I wanted to talk about. We are people who have been in government and worked for many years. When she said she wasn't around in the 80s, I like, Lord have mercy, she's even younger than I thought she was. So what I'm obsessed with right now in my life is my exit plan, because Congresswoman, I love to have fun. I love to travel and stuff like that. So my job now is to look at young women like this and look at plans in nurturing them to take over the spots in this community. That's all it's about for me. And not just her, young men and women. There's a time for us to get out of the way so these people can come in and do what they're going to, because if we don't, then we're going to lose them. The Virgin Islands is losing a lot of great, brilliant young people. And it's because we don't get out of the way. It's at some point, I'm not ready to leave yet, Imani, but at some point, that's going to happen, and you're going to be the one. And what I'm watching on TV, because I read MOUs and documents all day long, and I'm studying, so I read a lot of textbooks and that kind of thing. But I Ratchet TV. Anything with somebody cussing somebody out on like Housewives of something. Yeah. Or somebody or something, it's my de-stressor. So I'm sorry. I don't apologize.
To right now,
I'm really gearing up for Housewives of Potomac. I'm excited about that. It hasn't started yet, but I'm like thinking this is going to be a good one.
Well, Barbara, a couple of things that you said. So interesting. I was having a conversation yesterday with Tioni, Scotland, in my office.
Right. She's a brilliant young woman.
Brilliant. And I love having young people around the office for their energy, and particularly young people that want to learn, and one of the things I was telling her is that I'm not one, I don't stay in jobs very long. This is the longest I've ever been in a job, 6 years in one position. But interestingly, there's a lot, it changes a lot. So it keeps me engaged. But I don't see myself being a Ron DeLugo or a Don.
Yeah.
That's just not me. Christina, your old boss, Brenda Lawrence, and I have a pact that if one of us comes on the floor using a cane, the other person has permission to take it and beat the heck out of the other person because you've been there too long. But God bless those that they can do that. But there need to be younger people who, and my thing is putting your head down and just doing the work.
Yeah.
Gaining that experience, not always during your 20s and 30s looking for accolades, but really just doing the work and honing your craft. The one thing I've been so determined that I will not be considered is a dilettante in my life. Someone who just has a surface knowledge of stuff, but really being smart and thoughtful about several strategic things. And, I'm really trying to and hoping and trying to press on younger people to do that, to listen, to determine what you're passionate about and just do the work. And when that door cracks open, then walk through it. But Imani, what are you watching or reading?
So I am just all over the place. I feel like I'm reading like 10 different books right now. But just a personal journey that I've been on has been really trying to understand like where we come from as people culturally and like physically and trying to understand that. So I've been reading a lot of like Frantz Fanon and like Marcus Garvey and some of those like, controversial, writers, but because there's so much truth in it and it's such a perspective that we don't often see, and I think it's important. And then kind of matching that on the modern scale with like Malcolm Gladwell's works. I've been going through like all of his stuff on just how people relate to situations. And one of the books I've had on my shelf for a while that I'm actually I'm on page like 3 is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I hear that like a lot of really successful people read this book, and it's been gifted to me so many times that I'm just kind of sitting in my house. I finally have time to read it. But it's a very interesting concept, and I think that's what I'm trying to do is, if I've been put in this position of leadership, whether I asked for it or not, what is the most responsible way that I can impart change, right? And how can I personally grow to get there? And kind of what Barbara was saying, I'm looking at my succession plan, right? Like, I think millennials are like, there's a problem, let's creatively solve it, and then let's move on to the next problem, right? And so that I haven't really been watching a lot of stuff. Honestly, this is kind of embarrassing, but I've been watching a lot of like lore theory on like Game of Thrones because I'm still like really upset on how it ended. So hopefully the books will continue.
But did you read the books, Imani?
Yes. And so I've been a Game of Thrones fan for like 15 years, and now I'm just very sad.
But you don't think it was if you read the books that was the appropriate ending, that at the end, Jon Stark's kids, they do take over. They are, in fact, the Starks do control all the kingdoms.
So I think that Sansa's story arc and Theon Greyjoy's story arc are the only ones I was cool with. Like Arya squandered, Daenerys squandered. So I'm just hoping that George R. R. Martin like hears his fan base and finishes the books, because
I wrote him a letter like 10 years ago. And because I was very upset that I did not see Us.
Yes.
And so I suggested to him that he created, and you guys tell me what you think in the comments, that he creates a group of people who sail to the kingdom, who are dark people, who have seers who tell them that, this would have been right before they came over the wall, that says, listen, our seers have told us that something is coming over the wall. You need our help. And so we are here to fight for you. And that those people are shapeshifters.
Yeah.
And they're able to fight. So, listen to me. So, whatever.
Finish the series. I don't need George R. I just need someone.
We'll write it together, Imani. We have so much time.
I'll get my pre-subscription in right now. I'm ready.
Game of Thrones and Hurricane and Emergency Management. That's an emergency management plan.
So Kaisa asked me about, did I see the movie Fatal Affair? Yes, I saw that, and I thought that was no. And I love me and Nia Long. That's my girl. But No, no.
What about Westworld? Are you okay on Westworld?
It's okay. I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
That was losing me too, but I'm gonna give it some time for redemption.
But I have been watching this. It's an older show. It's on HBO. It's called Succession.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
That's a good one too.
I love that family. They are so screwed up. I love watching them. And I did watch a movie called Ado.
Okay.
Which is about an African boy who is trying to get to Spain through Morocco. And it just talks about, conflict in Africa. Very interesting. It was a good movie. And I'm reading a book that's called Elephants, Tigers, and Cell Phones. And it's a discussion about India in the 21st century. And how India has been able to adapt and change. And I always have this theory that in the 1950s and 60s, the Virgin Islands created, of course, the middle class through government workers. And that was how we developed our middle class. But that's an unsustainable proposition for economic development. And we need to move to jobs, the bulk of jobs going through the private sector. And India, of course, in the 1940s, when it became a nation, also created a bureaucracy, a government bureaucracy that allowed people to have work. But this book talks about their culture and confluence that created the idea of software development and call centers and stuff. What were the things within the society that allowed them to be ready for that? And so, the creation of IIT, the India Institute of Technology, and all the different schools. And so I'm trying to glean from that what we as the Virgin Islands should be for the 21st century to allow us to grow. So that's what I've been looking at. I know that I have to get going. But, this has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you, ladies, so much. But before we close out, this has been a really difficult week in terms of passings of legends and of great people. The first one, of course, is more personal for those of us in the Virgin Islands. And Ricky Francois, who is in my office, he is the person who is there always, has your back. His father, Conrad Francois, passed away. Many people do not know Conrad Francois was, Barbara, what you're talking about, an individual who really looked out for young people, was a tremendous mentor, was not afraid to share the spotlight and push young people into the spotlight. A graduate of Lincoln University, got his MBA from Tulane University. And, I'm just so grateful to have had him in my life, to be able to come to his house and his kitchen table where he held court. There was of New Orleans style coffee, ready to pour, to talk you through, to listen, to give some stories. And many people don't know this about him. When he was at Lincoln University, he was there with Gil Scott-Heron.
Oh, wow.
And so he recalls the whole creation of the group. So Conrad Francois, you are not forgotten, and rest in peace. But then we also had C.T. Vivian, a great civil rights leader who passed away as well this week. We send out condolences to his family and remember his legacy. And of course, the great Congressman Ron DeLugo from the Virgin Islands. My first job out of college before I went to law school was interning in Ron DeLugo's office. He told me he only gave me a job because I called every week and I was being a pain in the ass to his staff. And God, just give her a job. I can't take it anymore. But, you know, he was the salt of the earth kind of person. I really modeled a lot of what I did in Congress in terms of relationship building. Him really being someone who observes and understands other members to be able to see where you can work with them, what their needs are, how it fits with yours, and always having a lot of run to be able to give as thank yous and, you know, to smooth the way with other members. He was a tremendous man. Mango Jones, Ron DeLugo, thank you for your 20 years as a member of Congress. Thank you so much. And then yesterday, John Lewis, the great giant. And I heard someone say something this morning, and I was like, you know, that's correct. John Lewis was a biblical figure, that he was a modern day prophet. This was a man who was beaten and imprisoned for our rights, and up to the last day of his life was still writing and working while he was battling pancreatic cancer. Those of us who have had the honor of working with him cannot forget his gentle soul, his willingness to put himself on the front line for any cause, anything that was important for the beloved community, as he put it. He believed that we could create the kingdom of God here, and that it was within every human being goodness, and it was just a matter of pulling that out. And so I'm grateful. You know, I recall, I never called him John. He was always asking me to call him John, and I thought that that was so offensive that I was like, Mr. Lewis, I could never, ever call you by your first name. And I remember one day on the floor, he called me and said, hey, we're having a meeting in my office. John Larson from Connecticut asked me to go to the office, and I went to John Lewis's office, and you can see, I mean, his office had all these black and white amazing photographs of him during the civil rights movement. And then he had bales of cotton, large bales of cotton to remind himself of his sharecropper background. And they were planning the sit-in for gun violence. And I was so honored that, you know, I was one of the 10 people who were in that first meeting with him in his office. But like, as you said, Barbara, you know, always willing to support young people, always looking for ways to bring people up. You know, Martin Luther King did that with him, always called him the boy from Troy. He remains the boy from Troy, even in his passing at 80. You know, he had a little giggle that he would do when, you know, we were about to do something that was maybe a little controversial, or as he would call, good trouble. He got a little, you know, he got a little happy when that was going to happen. And his favorite song was Happy by Pharrell. And if that song came on, you could believe that John Lewis was going to get up and get moving. So we have lost giants, but it is to all of us to carry on their legacies and to make new legacies, right? Not just to live as they lived, but to do greater things. So thank you, ladies, for being on the show. I don't know what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks, but, you know, I just want to also shout out my team who during the last hurricane did some tremendous work. Elizabeth Centeno, who was there on the ground at the time, Cletus Clendenin, Kaiser Callwood, Laverne Joseph, who were tremendous here on the ground. And of course, Angeline Jabbar, who was the legislative director, and Jeff Knoll. Jerome Murray was my chief during that time, really ensuring that the Virgin Islands was not forgotten.
You just skip right over me, huh?
No, because I'm going to get to you. It's not forgotten that we had the money that was needed to rebuild and to create the resiliency that Amani was talking about. You know, and so it's interesting when Barbara took the position at Vitima, I spoke with Joshin, the director, and let him know that this is the perfect person for this position, and this is the perfect position for her, because after working with Barbara in the storms and thereafter as my special projects coordinator, there is no better crisis management person. And Barbara, you talked about women being with details, but I think even more so, women are the ultimate multitaskers, which are needed during crises. And you, Barbara, are one of those people who really rise to a crisis. And your best efforts show through. So they are incredibly enriched to have you there. Christina, I never got to see the baby that you had not that long ago. So you need to let us get a picture of that, of the baby. I know you've got some older ones, but we want to see the young one too. You know, we're a baby office. We love having babies come through the office. It keeps us young. And Amani, I'm so glad you and Barbara got to hook up and to meet with each other. I'm sure you guys will be seeing more and doing more together. So thank you all, and to thank everyone who has been a part and listening to this. And everyone, take care and see you in 2 weeks. God bless.